Allen Stiles, Sactown Sports, 1 hour down, 3 more to go with you. Hope everybody's enjoying your Friday. And we hope Mick Akers is enjoying his Friday. Mick of the Las Vegas Review-Journal. Mick Akers, thank you so much for joining us, man. Happy Friday.
Hey, you as well. Thanks, man.
Let's get right to it, Mick. You broke the news earlier this week that the build in Las Vegas for the Athletics ballpark going to cost about $250 million more than originally planned, and John Fisher is going to fit the bill. What led to this? Were the initial projections just off? Did something else happen throughout were they off from the get-go, or did something change? How did all this kind of come to be?
Yeah, so over the last several months, they've been in the planning and designing phase. So as they went through that, they ended up adding 70,000 square feet of additional amenities. They kind of changed up the seating a little bit to make it a little bit closer to home plate and then less outfield area. So they're going to have some of the closest seats in Major League Baseball. Added some player amenities, so they're going to have some, high-end areas for the players for both the home and away teams. And then also construction costs has kind of have risen since then as well. Kind of the same process that happened with the Raiders Stadium when they first came out as $1.8 billion. And by the time they were done, it ended up being $2 billion. And that was also because they added some spaces like the Wynn Field Club that's in the end zone there as such. So it's kind of a common thing. Once they first announce a price, obviously they have to get into the weeds. And once they actually go in and know what they have to actually get, usually the costs go up on that.
Talking to Mick Akers of the Las Vegas Review-Journal. Mick, there's been a lot of talk in Sacramento about, I guess I'll say, ulterior motives and what if Vegas falls through, and that's why they decided to bring the Athletics to Sacramento. With the documents that got approved earlier this week to move forward, does this make the move to Vegas pretty close to 100% certain, or what does that do for the process?
Yeah, so this is the vital step that had to be done with the Las Vegas Stadium Authority in order to get everything ready to go for construction and then also make available the public money. They still have a few things to do with the Clark County here as far as doing the entitlement process for the 9 acres of land on the Strip, and then also make their own development agreement with Clark County. Then they can, get the project going. But they can start the project basically at any time after an entitlement process. They can start funding it on their own. So they have to put their money into a surety, basically, to say, hey, we have the needed funding. They're going to do $1.1 billion in equity from the Fisher family, and then $300 million from a construction loan from U.S. Bank and Goldman Sachs. So once they have that firmly in there, that's when it's going to open up the public money. But as far as these 3 agreements that got approved yesterday, those were pretty much the last major hurdles in the process here in Vegas.
Talking to Mick Akers, Las Vegas Review-Journal. Mick, just from a fan perspective, I've been out in Vegas, and I'll tell you what, when people ask me how my time was, or whenever I visit Vegas, the first thing I say, whether I'm in an Uber, whether I'm talking to any of the Vegas locals, the number one team that they ride for is those Vegas Golden Knights. That is your baby out there, the Vegas Golden Knights. As we now see the Athletics are headed out there, as well as the Raiders, what has the excitement been like? And I also want to take some time and get your thoughts on the Raiders in particular, because there have been some kind of bad clips that we've seen from the Raiders stadium, just as far as other fans taking over. Have the Raiders become more Las Vegas, and what's the excitement level for the A's?
Yeah, with the Raiders, obviously, they came in right after the Golden Knights. The Golden Knights was what they call Vegas-born, right? They were an expansion team, and they started here. So obviously, and they came in right after the October 1 shooting and kind of rallied the city. So, it kind of drew them an instant fan base, even though, hockey was pretty much an unknown out here, even though we had, some minor league stuff for years before that. Mm-hmm. So that's what kind of drew, the main popularity towards the Golden Knights. But then you had the Raiders come in, and at first, they ended up selling out all the season tickets before the stadium was built. A lot of those were locally bought. A lot of them are also from California, obviously Oakland and Southern California, where their former residences there as well. So that Raiders fandom has been growing. Obviously, you're seeing a lot of people traveling here for a game, just become the destination city for people to go to their away game. Kind of built by design because of the $2 billion, $750 million of public funding went towards that, and that's paid for by a room tax here in Las Vegas. So anytime someone stays at a hotel room on the Strip, 0.88% goes towards that, a tax on that. So obviously it's paying for itself basically. Obviously the Raiders are saying, hey, we want to see some more silver and black in the stands, but they understand, that's kind of, the makeup of how that stadium got built. And a lot of the fans locally are taking advantage of the popularity and selling their tickets on the secondary market and basically making their money back and then some on their season tickets and PSLs. So that's, kind of the main driver behind a lot of the opposing fans out here. Similarly to the Raiders, they got here and then they've been building up their fan base. And, you're starting to see a lot more silver and black, a lot of Raiders license plates, people wearing Raiders all over the place now. So it is booming out here as far as their popularity. Similar with the A's, the first talks about it, people are kind of getting excited. Then it kind of drug on for a minute and kind of, muddled the situation. But now that it's getting real, you're starting to see more A's stuff pop up around the city and people are talking about it. So I think the excitement level is kind of building now that it's more real, than it was a couple of years ago.
That's interesting because it's a very unique situation with the A's in Sacramento. The A's signed Luis Severino yesterday, and that was huge news, the biggest contract in franchise history. So do you see a world, and obviously the Raider part of it, the Raiders got to play better. Everybody knows when you play better, more people care. We're dealing with that right now with the Kings. As far as the A's are concerned, Severino gets signed. Do you see a world where as this thing gets closer, people in Vegas are paying attention to the A's, knowing that they're on the way? Like, are there Vegas fans, maybe when we get further down the line, but, oh, wow, the A's, even though Severino signed a 3-year deal, funny enough, and unless he signs a deal after that, won't be in Vegas, do you see Las Vegas residents paying attention to what the A's are doing while they're in Sacramento?
Yeah, I think that will build up over the next 3 years. Obviously, as it gets closer, and maybe when they start seeing the stadium actually go up from the ground, I think the excitement will kind of drum up a little bit more. Back when the Raiders were in their relocation process and still out in Oakland, we had reporters go out there and cover every game. I'm not sure if we're going to do that in Sacramento yet, but obviously we'll be paying attention and reporting it out here so the fans can get it out here as well. But as this process goes on, as I mentioned, I think the fan base is going to kind of grow out here and people are going to start paying attention. And maybe if they have some other team affiliations, if they moved here from like LA, like the Dodgers or something like that, maybe they'll make this their second team. That's what I've seen a lot with the Raiders, a lot of transplants out here. So people have their own NFL teams that they like, but they're kind of adopting the Raiders as their second team. Obviously they can go and watch the games live. So it kind of adds to it. So I think over time, people might switch their affiliations, but it'll take some time. But obviously, winning's going to help. With the Raiders right now, you have them not doing so great on the field. A bunch of stuff going on in the back end and all that kind of thing. I think once the newness of the Allegiant Stadium out here, it's 5 years old now, right? So once that kind of wears off, they're going to have to have a winning team to keep that stadium being filled. So we're going to see how that goes, and it'll be like that for the A's. The A's have long been said, hey, the A's don't spend money on players, right? So I think they're trying to show the next steps of their team as they're approaching Las Vegas. John Fisher told me several times that they're ready to spend money on a team. They just need to get out here and have a new ballpark ready. So I think yesterday's signing was just the first of many to come over the next few years.
Mick Akers, Las Vegas Review-Journal. Well, Mick, with that being said, one last question for you, and I'm a guy who I'm in Sacramento now. I grew up in the Bay Area. I've been to plenty of games at the Coliseum. With all of the politics and the drama that's gone on, is there a world where you ultimately see this move being successful and the athletics being successful out there in Vegas?
Yeah, well, same as the Raiders. They moved here and they're dead last in the NFL rankings as far as valuation. And once they moved out here over the years, now they're in the top 10, obviously. So you've seen a big boom in their financials there. So it depends how you want to measure success, right? Because obviously out here, they've only made the playoffs once. They've went through several coaches, quarterbacks, and all that kind of thing. So on the field thing, we'll see how that goes. But as far as the business side of things, the A's are kind of looking at that similarly. Hey, we're going to come out here and do some of these partnership deals with, some of these companies up and down the Strip, obviously naming rights and all that kind of thing. Raiders did about over a dozen of those, obviously very lucrative deals there long term and all that. So that, they have guaranteed money coming in, and they'll have to kind of go through and renegotiate those here coming up in a few years. So there'll be some more money on the line there. So I think the A's are just looking at the Raiders situation and kind of, following it as they did it. Pretty much the whole situation leading up to the stadium, it's pretty similar. The same thing with the Stadium Authority. They hired a lot of the same contractors who are going to build it and design it and all that kind of thing. So I think the Raiders set the blueprint, and now the A's are kind of following that along.
Mick Akers, thank you so much. Las Vegas Review-Journal. Go check out his work. Mick, enjoy your weekend. Thank you for taking the time, and we will definitely be talking soon.
All right, thanks for having me.
Thanks again. Once again, that was Mick Akers of the Las Vegas Review-Journal. Great stuff there, and maybe not great if you were part of that, the tinfoil hat as far as are the A's going to end up in Sacramento. Look, anything is possible, but, I think Mick gave us some really good context as to what happened earlier this week, what is going to happen moving forward, and just the vibe of the plan. And it just seems very businessy, if you will. The Vegas and the Raiders seems very businessy, but I guess that's what it is. Vegas is big business out there. It's big business. Great stuff from Mick Akers. All right, on the other side, we hear from Mike Brown. We love to play the post-game pressers, much to some of you all's chagrin, but we need to know what the head coach is saying after games like this. So we hear from Mike Brown. More of your calls, more of your texts, more of your Sack Chat. Allen Stiles, Sactown Sports.